Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again. In this video, we're going to add Netlify CMS to an existing React application built with Create React App. The application itself is a markdown blog, and we add new blog posts to the blog by just creating markdown files and then running a server script, which you see here, which basically turns that markdown content into data, and then later when we run our Create React app, our blog pages and the blog post list will be created dynamically from that data. Right, but actually getting the blog post into the project requires you to be able to develop locally like we are here using something like VS Code and then adding those files manually. But if you've ever had a blog before, like say WordPress, you know that you can just go to the WP admin page. There's a nice user interface, and you can quickly add blog content, including images, and have that published and have your website updated quickly. Right. So for people who aren't developers, that's the best way to go. But if you're a React developer who creates a nice blog site using something like Create React App, and you want to invite other users to add content to your blog and they aren't developers and they don't have GitHub accounts, you can use the Netlify content management system to allow them to do that, because it does have a nice user interface and it pushes all of your changes to your GitHub repository from Netlify. And that's the way that this blog would work. I don't have a repository for it yet, but I would create a repository at GitHub, and then I would push all my changes here to that repository, and then I would add this project to Netlify, and that's where I would host the live version of my site. And every time that I push changes to my GitHub repository, it would trigger a rebuild at Netlify, and then I can see the updated changes within a few minutes. And that's enough talking for now. Let's take a look now at the Netlify CMS homepage, and it shows you how to get started pretty easily. For example, if you are a React developer and you're thinking right now you want to start a new blog, well, you could just go ahead and use this Gatsby site starter right here. And you just go ahead and use this. It would add in the Netlify CMS to your project, and it gives you basically a blog. It's a working blog. Of course, you would want to go in and modify it so that it looked the way you wanted it to look, and it would have all of the features that you would want it to have. And if you're a React developer, you can easily do that with Gatsby. Right, but we have an existing Create React App project that we would like to add Netlify CMS to. So we would want to follow this link here that says add Netlify CMS to an existing site. Unfortunately, they don't give you any help on adding this to a Create React App project. They only help you if you have project generated with something like Gatsby or Hugo or Next.js, for example. All right, if you go to the Create React App doc site and you type in the search bar, for example, Netlify CMS, all you get are some instructions on how to deploy your project to Netlify, which we will be doing today. But that's not all we'll be doing. Of course, we'll be adding the content management system. Now, Netlify and the Netlify CMS are different. You don't have to have them both to use the content management system, but it makes it easier if you do. So for now, what we can do is we can take a quick look at this blog that I've created. It has a blog post content folder that has markdown files, and those markdown files have metadata and also blog post body content. We run a script called server. So we say npm run server. And what that does is it takes that markdown content and it rewrites this file called post.json. And this is a JSON file that has an array full of JSON objects, and each object represents a blog post. And then when we run our Create React app, we're able to access that list of blog posts and dynamically generate blog pages. So if I do npm start, right, and I run things locally, I can see my blog. And I've only got one post at this point. I've got an about page as well. Okay, so at this point, like I said, I don't have a repository for this project yet at GitHub. So we're going to have to create one, but first, before we do, let's just go ahead and try to figure out where we're going to put this admin folder that we're going to need for our project. This is what's going to have all of the Netlify CMS files that we need. If you're using Gatsby, you would put it in the static folder, right? If you're using Jekyll, you would put it in your project root. If you're using Create React App like we are, then you're going to have to put it in your public folder. All right, so I don't have one yet. So go ahead in your public folder, create another folder called admin, and in that folder add two files. One will be index.html and the other will be config.yml. Okay, so you've got two new files in there, and it shows you that here. So to your newly created index.html file, go ahead and add this code. And you can see that within this, in the body, you have this script that is loaded from a CDN, and it has what you need, the Netlify CMS. All right, but this is not everything we need. All right, we'll also, by the way, it tells you you can use an NPM package rather than doing things this way. But I haven't done that yet, and if you go ahead and do that and you're successful, please make a video. I'd love to see it. And of course, let me know in the comments below. But for now, we'll skip down to the configuration file. All right, so the first thing we'll need to add is this bit of code, and you can just add it as it is. Make sure that you're not indenting the top line. All right, so again, make sure there are no indentations for the next part. You can skip over the part that says editorial workflow and go down to the section in media and public folders where you have code that looks like this. This is what we'll add. And these comments, you can just get rid of them. All right, so it says here that our media folder will be mainly in a folder called static, and then it'll have two other folders, images and uploads, within it. We're not using static. Remember, we're using public, and that's where our admin folder is. So go ahead and change this to public. All right. And the reason we're doing that is because our media folder, which is going to be this images folder, is in public. We're not using an uploads folder, so you can get rid of that and that. Okay, so and we have our public folder with images in it. All right, and this will be like after you run your build script, you'll have a build file or build folder included in your project, and your images folder will be within that build folder, and that's how your images will be distributed with your other static content. All right, so that should be okay. We'll go down to the part called collections, and this is where we configure our blog post input fields. Now we have in our blog two collections, right? We have a collection of pages and a collection of posts. But since we're setting this up for the benefit of other users, not ourselves, because we can go into our local repository anytime and make changes, right, we're setting this up for people who we just want to add blog post content. We don't want them to change the pages. So we'll just create one collection called posts. All right, so what we can do is we can copy this code here, and we can post this in below the media folder and public folder code. All right, and you can see that these fields that are given here were made in consideration of what was up here in the metadata. Okay, so for our post, our metadata, our front matter is a lot simpler. All right, we just have these four fields. All All right, so what we'll want to do is we'll want to change the name to posts. All right, because we're using these blog posts in this folder here. You can label for the UI in your CMS blog posts if you like. And the folder that we're in is posts. Right, and that's the path relative to the root. All right, leave create true as it is. You can have your slug any way you like it. I'm just going to get rid of the year, month, and day and just have the title as my slug. We're not using a layout this way, so you can get rid of that. We do need an author field. You can see that here. So right below your title field, you can add that. Author. And that will be as a string. Right, we're going to publish we want the publication date, of course, and that's just a date time widget. When you open up your administration page, there'll be a date picker that you can use. We want to use thumbnails in our blog posts, at least on the main post list page, so we'll keep the next field, but we don't want this rating field, so you can get rid of that. And then, of course, we want the blog body content, and we want it in markdown. Okay, so let's go down, right, past the part that says filters, and it talks about authentication. Now we're going to deploy our site to Netlify. Excuse me. So we'll use Netlify's identity. It's a service called Identity that has built-in authentication, so we don't have to worry about setting that up ourselves. So first thing we want to do now is we want to deploy our site to Netlify. And at this moment, we don't have a repository for our code, so I'll have to make one first. So I'm going to call this repository Netlify CMS React. How about React app? Okay, and then we'll just create that. We don't have any code in there yet. We need a remote origin so that we can actually push our code from our local environment to our remote repository. So copy this URL here. All right, so if I want to look at the remote origin that I have currently for my project, I can do git remote-v, and this is the URL of the repository that I cloned this project from. It was my own repository. So if you clone from my repository after you watch this tutorial, or while you watch this tutorial, you'll have nothing when you do git remote-v. So I'm going to remove this origin because I'm not pushing to that repository anymore. All right, so if I do git remote-v, I've got nothing, and that's what you should see after you clone my repository. Hopefully you're not able to push your changes to my repository. All right, and then I want to add my new repository as the remote origin. So I can do git remote add origin, and then paste in the URL of that new repository we just created. All right, and if I do git remote-v, I'll see that my new origin is set up, or my origin is now my new repository. Okay, and now we want to push these changes to GitHub. Okay, so now if I go back to my repository and I check code, I see that nothing is there yet. Sorry about that. I absent-mindedly forgot to actually push it. Excuse me. Git push origin master. Okay, got ahead of myself there. All right, now we see the code is there. So now we can go ahead and set things up at Netlify. So if you don't have Netlify yet, you can easily set up an account. I recommend you set it up so that you can log in through your GitHub account. And that's what I do. All right, and then you can go to New Site from Git. So I host my files at GitHub, so I'm going to click GitHub. All right. The repository I just created is not listed here. So what I'll need to do is click Configure the Netlify app on GitHub. All right, I have to log in one more, put in my password one more time. All right, I go down to Repository Access and click Select Repositories. And if you remember, the the repository we just created was called Netlify CMS React App. Here it is. Save that. Okay, and we see that here. So now we set up our build settings. So the build command should be yarn build, and if you don't trust it, you can go back and remember when we run our app, our create React app, we do npm start. And once it's running, you'll see that it says you can create a production build using yarn build, so that's how we know that's okay. Let's go ahead and kill that. All right, good. So one more thing we have to be careful of is, recall when I want to add a new post to my blog, and this is just the way I have it set up. For example, I only have one post in my my post folder now, but say I add a new post, all right, and I can do that manually on the on the local side. You can add a new file, called it new post.md. That's a new markdown file. And I can give it a different date of publication, call it the day after that last one. All right, good. So if I run npm start now, and I'm not going to see that post. I'm just going to see the original post that I had, right? And the reason being is I need to run a script here, right, called a server script. And that's going to run a file I have called main.js, which turns the markdown that I just added into data, right? And it adds it to this post.json file. All right, so if I run the server script, all right, you can see that I just added a new post to my JSON file. Now I have two in there. Okay, and then if I do npm start, I should see the new post, right? So here's the test post, the original one, and here's the new post. Good, and they both have unique IDs. All right, but I don't want to set those changes, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that file. I just don't want to push any new changes to the GitHub repository yet. So again, we're going to need to run that server script, right? That was the main point I was just trying to make. Yet we don't have any way of making Netlify do that right now. Netlify is only going to run, wow, actually we do. I forgot to erase it. So pretend like you didn't see this. Basically before I didn't have my server script included in my build command, so Netlify was only going to run this build command, the basic create React app one. So I had to add in the server script so that it would run the server first and generate that new post.json file, and then after it finished building, it would have that included in the build folder. So I'll go ahead and put that back. Okay, and everything is good, so we can deploy our site now. And once you do hit deploy site, you're going to see that it gives you this crazy name, that you don't even want to have that in your site's URL. So what you can do is you can go to site settings, go to change site name, and call it whatever you want. You can call it Netlify CMS React. And if the name isn't taken, then we can use it. Looks like we can. Takes a little bit of time to build, especially that first build. Right. And remember, all we're doing right now is we're deploying our site to Netlify. We still haven't completed our installation of the content management system. So this is a little bit of a time-consuming process. And again, if there are other things that you need to do to make your application work with Netlify better, like modifying the build script and whatnot, you'll have to figure that out yourself. Alright, hopefully it's almost finished building. If you ever want to see where you are progress-wise, you can check out the deploy log. I think we're done now. Good, yeah, it says site is live, so that's good. Alright, so site is live, click on your link, and there it is. You can see your post, and this is hosted through Netlify. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish adding our content management system. We just finished setting up on Netlify. Now what we need to do is go into our settings in Netlify. Alright, click on identity and click enable identity. Alright, and then we'll want to invite some users, and we'll just invite ourselves first. So the email address that I have connected with my GitHub account is not the one I want to enter here. I want to enter in another email address so that I can show you that outside users are available to use this content management system and push code to your GitHub repository. So I'll use a different one. All right, I'll send myself an invite. All right, and it's there. It says I've been invited to join Netlify CMS React. That's good. Don't click on that link yet. Okay, so now go to settings and usage, and go to registration. We don't want registration to be open. We want to have it be invite only, so we can invite the users we want to use our blog and contribute. You can set up external providers for one-click authentication and login. Right? You can add GitHub, and you can add Google. Right, so at least they'll have two choices. If they don't have a GitHub account, they can log in through Google, or they can just use their regular email account. It doesn't really matter. All right, now you'll want to go to Services, and you'll want to click Enable Git Gateway, and this allows Netlify to connect to your GitHub repository and allow changes to be made to it through the content management system. All right, and I think we did everything we were supposed to do here. Okay, and now we need to add this widget. This is the identity widget that makes it so that we can log in. All right, so copy that script. It says to paste it in two places. The first place will be in the head of your CMS index page at admin/index.html. So again, it's in your public folder in this admin index.html file. You can put it in your head right under the title. Right, you'll also need to add it to the head of your site's main index page, which for us is in the public folder, and it's this index.html. And again, we put it in the head underneath the title. We can change the title of our application if we like. Alright, we've done that, and now what we need to do is add this script right here to the same main index.html file right above the closing body tag. Alright, so in the same file right above the closing body tag. Alright, so it says here your site is now fully configured and ready for login, or your CMS is. Alright, so we should be able to go to our site, which is here, and go to admin /admin and access our content management system that way. But first, let's push all of our changes that we've just made, because we've got a few, to our GitHub repository. So git add, do a git status just to see the changes we made. All right, so we've modified both the index.html in our admin folder as well as our main index.html. And basically what we're doing is we're adding the content management system now. And if people judge you by the number of commits you make to your GitHub repository, well, if you're always posting your blog posts through your your local environment, you can really rack up those commits every time you push your code to your repository. So if you post 3 or 4 new blog posts a day, that's 3 or 4 commits right there. Of course, not everybody judges you based on the number of commits you make. Alright, so if we go to our Netlify homepage or our user page, when we go to deploys, it's still building. Right, should be done quickly. Once it's finished building, we should be able to see if our content management system is up and running. Okay, there we go. So refresh that page, right? This is our website, our home page hosted through Netlify. Go ahead and type in /admin in the address bar. And you see that it takes you to the Netlify CMS login page. All right, what we'll do is we'll go into our email and check out that invite that we received, and we'll click accept the invite. And it gives you 2 options for logging in, actually 3. You can sign up through your email address that you just clicked on the link through, or you can use, say, your Google account. So I'll go ahead and just use my Google account that's associated with that email address. All right, and it takes me to the main page, the UI for my content management system. All right, and I can check out an existing blog post, which is the only one I have. All right, or I can write a new one. All right, now I'd like you to see something here. Well, hold on a sec. And you can either edit your blog body content using the rich text editor or the markdown editor. Right, and the nice thing about having with this markdown editor is you have a previewer on the right side. So for example, if I want to add a video, right, I can just go ahead and embed it into my markdown. Usually when you paste in these videos, it pastes them in twice. I don't know why. So just get rid of one of them. All right, good. You have this nice preview on the right-hand side. Okay, now if I try to publish now, you'll see that I get this error here. It says you missed a required field. Now we would want our title, our author, and the publication date to be required, but we don't really, I mean, personally, I wouldn't want my blog post image thumbnails to always be required. I would like to be able to leave it blank. And if you want to do that, you can go into your configuration file in the image field and add one more property called required, and you can set it to false if you like. Right, but I'm not going to do that now. I'll have to wait for those changes to be updated. So we'll go ahead and choose an image for this one. We won't choose the existing image that's already in our folder. We'll go ahead and upload a new one, and we'll just add the Netlify icon. Now remember, if you start off and you have no images in your images folder, it'll take forever. It'll just sit there and keep trying to load the images you have. So I recommend adding a default image to your folder as soon as you create it. Okay, so we're adding that Netlify icon as a thumbnail. Of course, it doesn't show up as a thumbnail in your previewer, but I have it set up in my code here so that the width of the image tag is, or the width of the image using this image tag is 80 pixels. All right, so I have everything there. I can go ahead and publish. All right. So if everything's working, I should be able to see in my repository, my GitHub repository, this new post, right? And I didn't push anything from my local environment. So if I go to GitHub, my GitHub repository for this application, I go into posts, I can see this new post has already been pushed to my repository, and it has that Netlify icon and that iframe that we added to it. Okay, and if you're wondering why iframes don't show it in GitHub, just their markdown isn't set up for it, but ours is, so don't worry. And you can see that this is an outside user. It's not the person whose email is attached to this GitHub account, so I was able to have someone outside push remotely to my GitHub repository just by logging in through the CMS. Okay, so hopefully this is built or close to it. And also, you might push 3 or 4 posts to your repository a week, maybe 3 or 4 a day, who knows. At some point, when you open up your local environment, you're going to want to do a git pull and pull in all those changes. All right, now you probably don't want to let them get backed up too much. All right, we should be almost there. Okay, so if we go to our site, actually we can just access it this way. All right, good. We see our new post. It's right here. All right, and if we go to our local project, or we go to our local development environment, we see that that post is not there. We haven't pulled in the changes, right? We can do that just by going git pull origin master. Good. All right, now we see it. All right, But the important thing is that we were able to publish to our blog from Netlify CMS and push those changes to our repository remotely. And you see our video shows up nicely. So that's it. I hope that this helped you, and if you are trying to set the Netlify CMS up with your React application, that it works out for you. And if it doesn't, please leave me a comment or a suggestion in the comments below the video. And as always, I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Hello, Peter. What's happening? We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah. Yeah, I have the memo right here. I just forgot. But it's not shipping out till tomorrow, so there's no problem.
Yeah. If you could just go ahead and make sure you do that from now on, that would be great. And I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo. Okay?
Yeah, no, I have the memo. I've got it. It's right. Hello, Bill. What's happening?